Hello everyone and welcome back. We're at section 6 and we're going to talk about cars today. Fortunately, this has nothing to do with the insides of the car, about which I know just about nothing except how to drive. And what are we up to today? We're going to compute monthly payments. In other words, we're talking about buying cars. That's probably the worst part, but it can be exciting, I guess. But computing the monthly payment and interest costs are probably not on the top of your to-do list or fun list. But we've got a formula for that, and if you need help doing this on your calculator in the most efficient manner, stop by the office. I'll be glad to give you a little bit of assistance there. Also, we'll talk about some leasing contracts and the pros and cons of leasing versus buying a car. Very important, especially if you have a business. There might be a difference for your business, buying versus leasing. Also, what are the different kinds of car insurance? So we're going to hit a bunch of things. Not in depth, but it will give you an idea if you've never thought of it before. And we can compare monthly payments. New versus used cars. There is a topic for you. And there are a lot of arguments about buying new because no one's been in it before versus used. They're nicely broken in, and if they're relatively new, you can save a whole bunch of money. And then we'll solve problems about owning and operating a car. Some of you already know a bit about this. Maybe you can teach us a little bit. So first of all, the way you get a car, basically, unless you're going to buy it with cash, is using an installment loan. You get the car and you pay it off in monthly payments. Typically, those are fixed installment loans, and that means that at the end of every month or whatever your schedule is, you make another payment on your loan until 60 months or 72 months or whatever it is, you have it paid off and the car is yours. Keep in mind, because people don't really think this way typically, so that car that you have, that you drove to get here perhaps, is that yours? Well, do you have it paid off? And it's yours. If you're making payments on it, it's not technically yours because you haven't paid for it. Anyway, next. Here you go. Here's another formula to write down. Remember, you're going to also include that this is the formula for fixed installment loans. And there's the formula you need. Now, I'd be careful about putting P for this payment part, because here's the P right here. And that P is how much you need the loan for. This is the loan amount, this P. And this is the usually monthly payment that you make to eventually pay off your car. So let's start with an example so you can get a feel for this. We're going to borrow $20,000 for a new car. And you have a couple of options. Installment loan A, 3 years, 7%. Second option, loan B, 5 years at 9%. Notice that, and this is typical, the shorter your loan, the smaller the percentage rate, because they don't have to be concerned about your making the later payments. 5-year loan, they're concerned about what will happen between 1 and 5 years. Will you be around, or will you run into some kind of difficulty and not be able to continue your payments? So they up the interest as a result. It's a matter of risk. One thing we want to do is find the monthly payments. That's the one we had the formula for a few minutes ago. And while you're at it, find the total interest. that can be rather interesting. You might be surprised at, sure, I can make the monthly payments so I can afford the car. This is what's the bottom line? How much extra am I paying for that car because I need it now? Option B, what are the monthly payments again, and what's the total interest? That way we can compare these two possibilities. Notice the interest is different, or the interest rate is different, so the total interest is going to be different, as well as the number of years being different as well. And when we get those, we're going to compare those so you can see which one you would choose, because this is all about you. Okay, this is a bit much, isn't it? However, it's not that big a deal. Here's that formula I just showed you that I asked you to write down. Add that as part of your cheat sheet or whatever you want to call it. And the rest of it is just those numbers that we saw before for loan A, putting those numbers in. There's your $20,000 car. That's the interest rate, monthly payments there, 3 years there. Everything is there. All you need to do is put it in and hit enter. If you can put all this in your calculator. If you're not comfortable doing that, you have two options. One of them is take this one piece at a time. For example, the 0.07 divided by 12, save that. Multiply it by the 20,000. Do what's down below. Get that completed. Then divide the two. And there are your payments. Or, if you know how to do this, I salute you. I'm really proud of you. If you don't, I will also salute you and be proud of you if you stop by the office to find out how you can do this in one entrance of your calculator. It's not that hard. You might have to take a couple of notes, do it 2 or 3 times, 4 or 5, and then all of a sudden, oh, I get it. And you'll be able to do other similar formulas as well. So there's the 3 years. It shows you everything up there. And what you've got here is to get the interest. First of all, you take all the payments you made, all the money you paid to get that car, and you subtract what the car actually cost. The difference is how much you're paying in the form of interest during those 3 years. So you end up with loan B, $4,900. By the way, sneak a look back over here. For the 3-year plan, it was $2,248. For the 5-year plan, it's $4,900. That's a big difference. I'll let you do the math. That's with payments of $415, which are much smaller, but the interest will get you in the end. So here's what you've got. You've calculated the monthly payment for this first loan, loan A. This was the payment, and this is how much you paid in interest. For the 5-year loan, which was loan plan B, your monthly payment was a lot lower, but your interest was much greater because it lasted so much longer. In fact, about 66% longer than the 3-year loan. Okay, take a look at leasing. You can think of this a bit like a rental agreement. It's a long-term rental agreement. In fact, in most places, your rental agreement for your house is a long-term one too, unless you intend to move every year. So you pay a specified amount of money, so much per month, monthly payment, over a certain time. It might be a year, it might be 3 years. it depends on how you set it up. For a closed-end lease, so this is leasing in general. For a closed-end lease, every month you make the same payment as usual, as you expected, and that's depending on how much you intend to use it. The more you use it, the more they're going to charge you per month. When the lease ends, at the end of 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, or whatever it is, you return the car. You don't have it anymore. And you pay for the extra mileage above what you estimated when you pulled the car out of the lot. Now compare that with the open-end lease. In this one, you make a fixed payment based on the residual value. What does that mean? Well, when you pull that car out of the lot, it had a certain value. But every year the value goes down. Every month the value goes down. The residual value is what the value is of the car after a certain period of time. It's the resale value. If they took it back and then sold it, what could they get at a dealer? So what you do with the open-end lease is you return the car when the lease is up, and the payment is based on how much it's worth at that time compared to its residual value. And if the appraised value is less, you have to pay extra. If the appraised value is bigger, you owe nothing, or you might even get a refund. So you might want to reread that once or twice and get an idea of what those leases are. The closed-end lease, which ends at a certain point, and the open-end lease, where you pay up a bit at the end. Now, what are the advantages and disadvantages of leasing? First of all, the leases usually have a small down payment, or maybe none. Second, lease payments are usually lower than payments for the same car that you're buying. People can buy a more expensive car. Like, for example, if you're a real estate agent and you're taking customers around, you might want a little bit better car than what you would normally afford. Third, when the lease is over, you return the car, you can forget about the car forever if you like. On the other side, when the lease ends, you don't have a car. You have to lease another one or buy one. Most lease agreements have mileage limits. 12,000 to 5,000 miles is typical. If you go over those miles, you could have extra charges, maybe big charges. So you have to be careful. When there are mileage penalties at the end of the leasing are taken into consideration, the total cost is always more expensive than financing a car. You're responsible for keeping it in perfect condition, just like you should do with your own car. Any damage, you are the one that's liable. Make sure you have good insurance. Either way, leasing does not cover maintenance. You cover the maintenance. And if you quit early, you have penalties. Now, how about auto insurance? What should you know about auto insurance? When you get insurance, you're buying protection against loss. Protection against loss. And that's usually unexpected events, of course. You don't go out and crash into a tree just for fun. There are different kinds of coverage. And there are two components of liability coverage. That's your liability. And things are different in every state. There's bodily injury liability that covers the cost of lawsuits if you injure or have someone killed in an accident and you're at fault. property damage. If you hurt some other cars or property because you were faulty in the operation of your vehicle, then that kind of insurance will cover you from catastrophic bills due to that property damage. Also, collision coverage pays for damage or loss of a car if you're in an accident. For example, if you're out driving at dawn or dusk, you might take the risk in some areas of getting hit by a deer or vice versa. Comprehensive coverage protects you from other things like fire, theft, falling objects. There's that collision with an animal. Typically a deer, but it could be a moose if you're in Alaska, right? And other acts of nature like a tree falling on your car. So what's the difference in monthly payments between financing a new car and a used car? Okay, let's see. You're interested in buying a car and you've narrowed it down to two options. The new one costs $25,000 and you can get a 4-year loan at 7.9%. You also can buy a 3-year-old model, and it's the same model for $14,000, and you can get that loan for $8.45. Now notice they're both 4-year loans. Notice that for the used car, it's a little bit higher because it has been used. And here's that formula for payment for a new car. So if you finance with that 4-year loan, that's 7.9%, there are your numbers. There's your new car cost. There's the rate of your loan, monthly payments, 12 payments a year, and there's that 12 again, and 4 years is right there. So for that new car, you're going to have monthly payments of $609. How about the used car? Well, it's only $14,000. That's pretty good. 4 years, 8.45%, and you use the same formula. There's our sticker price, there's the rate, there's the monthly payments, there's the number of years, and your payments are $345 instead of $609. It's your choice. Now, you can see the difference in the monthly payments. There's $609 monthly payment for the new car, $345 for the used car. You can see an advantage there, but it also means you have a used car. It's up to you. What do you need? What can you afford? It's a big expense. Some of those things are fuel, maintenance, tires, tolls, parking, cleaning, and then there's insurance, license fees, registration fees, taxes, and interest on the loans. And here are some figures for the kinds of cars. Cost per mile, small sedan, cost per year. You can pause and take a look at these. You might focus in on what you think you would be likely to go for when you had to buy a car or your next car. Maybe it's a median sedan. And this is based on driving 15,000 miles per year, which is a pretty good average. How about the cost of gasoline? That's one thing you would want to calculate. How many miles are you going to drive per year? Maybe you'd put 15,000 in there just to be cautious. And what does your car get in miles per gallon? And then multiply that by how much the price of gas is. Good luck with that, right? It does change from week to week or day to day. Comparing fuel expenses. So if you drive 24,000 miles a year, maybe you're a traveling salesman perhaps, or you just do a lot of traveling, and gas averages $4 per gallon. What would you save if you bought a hybrid car instead? One that averages 50 miles per gallon. Yes, that is a true thing. 50 miles per gallon. I will tell you that I do have a hybrid car. I've had one for several years, and the one I have right now, typically between fill-ups, gets about 60 miles per gallon. Yes, I'm honest. It's not a motorcycle, it's a hybrid car. Now, we're going to assume that the SUV gets 12 miles per gallon and the hybrid gets 50. So let's suppose when you save your money, at the end of every month you put it into an annuity, we've talked about that, and it pays 7.3% compounded monthly. How much would you have saved at the end of 6 years? Well, this could be rather interesting. So let's compare the fuel expenses for those two cars, the hybrid and the SUV. The SUV, I'm sure, feels great. You can have a lot of people in it, and there are a lot of comforts in it too. And we'll go with that 24,000 miles per year, and the gas averages $4 per gallon. So what do we have? First, we want the annual fuel expense. Here's the 24,000 miles. Here's the gas mileage. Everything else is the same. The SUV only gets 12, so roughly one-fourth the number of miles per gallon. This is how much you would pay in gas costs for the year with the hybrid. And with the SUV, you'd be paying $8,000. There's a difference there. You can look at the bottom and see for yourself. A difference of $6,080 in fuel expenses. There's another thing too, sort of a comic note. My wife doesn't have a hybrid. She has a fuel efficient car, but compared to how often I stop and get gas, which is about once a month or so, I sometimes joke with her and say, "Oh, you're back at the gas station already? Who's at the gas station you're talking with all the time? I haven't been there in weeks." Anyway, that's just a joke between us. So we can use our formula here. This is our annuity formula. Remember, you've got that in your notes on your, quote, cheat sheet, unquote. And there you go. You would have $45,634 extra dollars at the end of 6 years by having a hybrid versus an SUV. Is having an SUV worth $45,000 extra dollars? That's up to you. It might be in some cases. Well, I think that's just about it. That's a lot of money to save in just 6 years. Well, you keep smiling and take care of yourself and keep saving that money and getting ready to either buy or lease a car. In the meantime, I'm going to go for a ride in my hybrid car. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.